Know any spells? One. But it's not powerful enough for all of them. Where's Hermione when you need her?
Hi there, welcome back to the channel. In this video I thought I'd share a short action cue which I wrote. It's a rescore of a scene from Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. As you may or may not be aware, there's a new TV series planned for the Harry Potter series, and when I heard about this it was just a nice excuse to go back and revisit the films, revisit some of the music, and have a listen to some of John Williams' action scoring, which I've always found really inspiring and kind of mind-boggling. One of the things I really admire about John Williams' approach to action music is how it doesn't rely on any of the tropes that you hear in a lot of modern TV and film music, where there's just big drums, big percussion, a big groove kind of tying everything together. It manages to sound huge and exciting, but with a large amount of dynamic range, a lot of variation, a lot of changes, and it feels really organic. And he does all of this with just the orchestra, you know, no fancy synths or sound design elements. It's really just all there in the writing, and I find that really challenging as a composer. I basically went through a period of listening to the original music from this scene kind of on repeat and trying to sort of internalize as much of it as I could, just because it kind of glittered at me and felt like something that represented a pathway forward for me as a composer. And when I was doing a bit of research looking for insights into how Williams approaches his action scoring, I came across a rather nice website. So it's called Film Music Notes, and it's by a chap called Mark Richards, who's really gone down the rabbit hole looking at John Williams' music. So you can see here's an example from the Action Music Harmony course, and he uses lots and lots of different examples from John Williams' scores that he pulls out. So like here, you know, he lays out some of the harmonic material and uses these kind of notations, which are a standard way of describing slightly more atonal, clustery sounds. I think for me, as somebody who composes via improvisation, it's quite helpful to sometimes go back to the theory and experiment with starting ideas from a place of theory first, where I have a sort of a tonal or atonal concept that I'm playing with, and then out of that you grow an idea. Or sometimes I'll improvise first and then kind of work backwards and come up with a theoretical sort of framework, which then helps me just carry the ideas a bit further than I otherwise would be able to just by sort of noodling around on the piano. So I wanted to take some of the material from the course and really get it in my bones by just using it straight away in a sort of real world scenario. One of the things I did right at the start of the process was watch the scene a bunch and then make a few text notes here. So I wanted to clarify my own aim. So I've written here, the goal is not to sound sophisticated, sound like John Williams, or sound like an orchestra. The goal is to write effectively. Aside from my DAW session, I had this Sibelius file open, and I made a few notes, some of which are just purely for reference. So I've got like a hexatonic scale here and some of the chords derived from that, so I could quickly reference them. I've got an alpha chord here. I've got a couple of little motifs. Some of these I had before I started writing any material, and others came from when I was initially improvising and coming up with ideas and just throwing them down on the piano. Then I would notate them. So that was kind of an interesting and fairly new approach for me, and it felt particularly useful in this context where it's quite easy to get lost in all of the atonality and dissonance. In my session here I have the video clip, and I also have the original audio from the film, and I have the John Williams score just isolated, which is from the soundtrack, just so I could hear what John Williams was doing, not so that I could copy it, but just so I could get a little bit of inspiration from it. And then I had a voice-only channel, which I created from the original audio using this tool called RX9 Music Rebalance, which is quite an old plugin. So here we've got the vocal channel.
It is an ancient creature, we spiders fear above all others.
And then I was able to take a few of the sound effects in moments where there's a big crash or something and the sound effects are so loud in the mix in comparison to the music that the music kind of gets buried, and so I just pulled in a few of the impacts and moments there so that I had a bit more to work with and to inspire me as I was working. So without further ado, I'll just play you the short cue. I'll do it once with sound effects and dialogue included so that you can see it in context, and then I'll play it through a second time with just the music.
But if you're not the monster, then what did kill that girl 50 years ago?
We do not speak of it. It is an ancient creature we spiders fear above all others.
But have you seen it?
I never saw any part of the castle but the box in which Hagrid kept me. The girl was discovered in a bathroom. When I was accused, Hagrid brought me here.
Harry? What? Well, thank you. We'll just go.
Go? I think not.
Love Ron.
My sons and daughters do not harm Hagrid on my command. But I cannot deny them fresh meat when it wanders so willingly into our midst. Goodbye, friend of Hagrid.
Don't we panic now? Not any spells? One. But it's not powerful enough for all of them. Where's Hermione when you need her? Glad we're out of there.
Cool. And I'll just play it again through without the sound effects and dialogue. just for fun, let me play you a little bit of the piano sketch. So this project is basically as far as I got before I started orchestrating, apart from the very beginning, which I used a string pad for. But the majority of the cue is just done in many, many fragmentary piano recordings, as you can see, with quite a few different layers. I like to give myself permission to be very messy at this stage of the process, so it's kind of all over the place. I like to prioritize speed and just getting the stuff down rather than organizing the material at this stage of the creative process. But anyway, let me just play you a little bit of it now. And hopefully you can hear that it's very similar to the final orchestrated piece. I kept pretty much all of the harmony the same. I tweaked a couple of the lines and I added a couple of lines, especially backing figures, but all the structure of the cue is there. I think I removed that note. And in some cases, I knew what instruments were going to be playing what, but in many cases, I was just prioritizing the rhythms and the melodies and the harmonies. These sorts of chords I wouldn't necessarily have had the confidence to use before taking that course, but it helped me to have a little bit of logic behind what I was doing. That bit changed a little bit. So yeah, I really spent a lot of time developing the material at this stage and trying it against picture. But yeah, this is a good example of a chord which I wouldn't necessarily have had the confidence to use before taking that action harmony course, or know what scale to go with it. But here it's, so now I understand this to be essentially one of the alpha chord subsets, which is a fancy way of saying the chord which you get when you lay two diminished sevenths on top of each other, which are a semitone apart. So that would sound like this. Picking notes from that group of notes, and then I've kind of reordered them slightly, like doubling this bottom note at the top of the chord there. So as a result, I know that I can use, in this case, the this whole half octatonic scale on C as a way of, if I wanted to create some runs or melody over that, I could do that. So that's an example where, whereas in the past I might have just plonked down a random cluster, here I'm sort of deliberately choosing notes that I know have the right mix of dissonance and tonality to them, and then I'm able to grow material out of that set of notes because I know which scale could go with it. So this has been a really nice exercise, I guess, in marrying the more intuitive sort of atonal or aleatoric approach to composition and improvisation with the more theoretical. So there you have it. That's my little experience of going down the John Williams action music rabbit hole. It's definitely something that I'm continuing to develop. There are certain things about that cue that I feel like could be more effective, having just listened to it there. I feel like there are still some moments that feel a little sparse, or maybe feel a little bit predictable. Obviously, when I flip back and forth between my track and the original John Williams, there's like so much beautiful stuff going on there, which I wouldn't know how to emulate necessarily. So there's just this kind of never-ending journey, really, I think, trying to level up the writing and all about just kind of trying to serve the picture as much as possible. In terms of the virtual instruments side of things, I'll put a list of the samples that I used if that's of interest to you in the description below. And I'll also put a link to the audio stems, and I'll see if I can provide the MIDI, even if the MIDI will probably be quite messy, but if you really want to, you can have a dig through the MIDI and see if you want to pull out any specific chords or motifs, and sort of you can spend some time studying what's going on there if you wish. So yeah, links to that in the description below. Thank you very much for watching another video, and let me know if you have any questions. Happy composing as always, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care.